do you have an opinion as to whether or not Nurse Quintanilla met the standard of care of a reasonable nurse in the same or similar circumstances in her participation in the labor of Aniele de la Cruz on October 10th?
Yes.
Tell the jury what your opinion is.
My opinion is that she did meet the standard of care for a nurse.
And we're going to go into more specifics with regard to the basis for your opinion, but just tell the jury generally upon what you base that opinion.
My opinion is based on she maintained consistent recordings of her vital signs of pain management for the patient, of monitoring both the mom closely with her contractions, monitoring the Pitocin, and also monitoring the fetal heart rate tracing.
And second question with regard to the standard of care, do you believe that the charge nurses, who to the extent they were even involved with the patient's care on the 10th, met the standard of care?
Argumentative.
Yes.
And again, tell the jury generally the basis for that opinion.
A charge nurse is essentially the resource nurse for the unit. She's in charge of staffing, calling in help if needed, being involved in emergency situations, and again, being the resource for the nurse. So if a labor nurse has questions or concerns, she goes to the charge nurse.
Was there any reason for Nurse Quintanilla to get the charge nurses involved in the care of this patient?
No.
Was there any reason for Nurse Quintanilla to initiate the chain of command for this patient?
No.
I'm going to ask you some specific questions with regard to the fetal heart tracing. Do you believe Nurse Quintanilla met the standard of care with regard to her interpretation of the fetal heart tracing?
Yes.
And what's the basis for that statement?
The basis is that she was aware that there were some variable decelerations and was providing reposition frequently. I believe she charted 16 times from midnight on.
Okay, wait a minute. She did what?
Was providing repositioning of the patient.
And how many times did she do it?
16 that I could count of that was documented from midnight.
Okay. Now, how do you know that she repositioned the patient that number of times on the 10th?
Because she recorded it in her documentation.
Okay, and you mean it's in the chart?
Yes.
Go ahead. It's real nice when somebody interrupts your train of thought.
It does. Can you just ask me the question
Yes.
again?
Okay. Maybe I can help you out by asking more specific questions. Between 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to say 9:30, even though what is your understanding as to the time when the strip changed to a Category 3?
I believe it was 9:45.
Okay, and the jury has also heard some other people say that it was at about 9:38. Does that really make any difference whether it's 9:38 or 9:45 as to when it actually reached Category 3?
No.
Okay, and I'm going to just use as kind of an overview term 9:30, so as to being the time when the strip changed.
All right, I object.
Grounds?
There's no basis for it. It assumes facts, not in evidence. She just testified 9:45 and then said some people said 9:38, and now we're moving it back to 9:30.
It's just an assumption made in the question, overruled.
Basically, what I want to ask you is between 1 o'clock and the time the strip changed, just for the purpose of my questioning, I'm just going to say 9:30.
Okay.
Understood? All right. Between 1 o'clock and 9:30, was this fetal heart tracing ever a Category 3?
No.
And what does it mean when a strip becomes a Category 3?
It means that the fetus has been compromised and you need to move towards delivery.
Now, when you interpreted this strip, did you find between 1 o'clock and about 09:30 this strip to be reassuring?
Yes.
What does that mean to a nurse who's monitoring a fetal heart tracing for a mom and her fetus?
The key component is to looking at variability, and there was always moderate variability.
Now, you said the key component is moderate variability. How do you know that? In other words, who tells you that's the key component?
That's well documented in the literature, A1, ACOG, etc.
And do you know, when you say the key component's moderate variability, what does that tell you as a nurse monitoring this labor with regard to how the fetus is doing?
It just means that the baby is well oxygenated, and if you were to do a gas on the baby at that time, the baby is not acidotic.
Okay, what do you mean a gas? The jury has heard about cord gases. What do you mean when you say gas?
A gas would be, if you were to check the fetus's blood pH at that time, it would be normal.
So you told the jury that moderate variability means that the gas would be normal if it was checked. How do you know that?
You don't know that at that time.
But why do you make that assumption as a nurse? Where does that information come from?
It comes from our knowledge base from prior research and is well documented in the literature.